I am live on Facebook, though, because I've already got people chatting in there. So you can chat on any of these platforms. Yeah. So the title of this stream is I'm Not Voting for Bernie Sanders. That's the title I made on YouTube. And I've thought a lot about this. And I do go back and forth. I'm not going to lie. The biggest part of it for me is that he does not engage with the LGBT community. And as a leftist, I mean, before anything, I'm transgender. And then I'm a leftist. Then I'm a socialist. Then I'm a Democrat. But who I vote for president, for any office, has much more to do with about their policies than their personhood. And I listened to an interview with Bernie Sanders by Mehdi Hasan, and I want to play parts of it. I want to play a lot of it, but I'm going to comment as we go. See if I can bring this in. Apparently, I have to re-download it because I listened to it all. But the whole class politics thing really... Do I think there should be class war? The people that are always talking about, oh, that's class warfare. That's just not right. It's always the wealthy. It is always the wealthy that are talking about that. They don't want people to know how they're screwing out their people. That's reality. But I also do know that during the 2016 election, Bernie Sanders did not engage with the LGBT community. The LGBT community engaged with him, but he did not engage with the LGBT community. He had no official campaign surrogates from the LGBT community. And to me, that's a non-starter. Because you're not going to get those votes. One of the reasons why Hillary Clinton had so many supporters in the LGBT community in 2016 was because she had surrogates within the community. That's just plain and simple. That's the fact. That's right. I'm stuck at 97%, by the way. So we'll listen to this interview and comment afterwards, but I think it's important for the LGBT community what candidate they choose. Because I can tell you for a fact that in 2008, the choice of president that we were given for the trans community, we made the best choice. Barack Obama, if anything, is the greatest trans friendly president we've ever had. He's a fierce advocate. I think people realize that now more than ever. D. Walsh is in the Twitter chat room. Let's see if I can bring this interview in.
You think that should have been a subject of conversation among reporters, pundits, Democrats?
Let's hook this up from the beginning.
And yes, headline writers too. In fact, my favorite headline of the past week comes not from a news organization, but from where else? The Onion. Its headline read, MSNBC poll finds support for Bernie Sanders has plummeted 2 points up. 2 points up, which I thought was typically brilliant, hilarious, and scathing all at the same time.
First off, Mehdi, I hate to say it, but he stands for Bernie this whole interview.
Religion than you, maybe they come from a different country. My question now to you is, are you willing to fight for that person who you don't even know as much as you're willing to fight for yourself?
This is giving context.
What's the deal with Bernie Sanders? Can the socialist senator from Vermont pull off the revolution he's promised this time round? Or has Senator Elizabeth Warren stolen some of his progressive thunder? And supporters too. Is Sanders the guy who can beat Warren and Biden and then Trump too? And how about that?
I mean, you know.
Why do you think that is? No, seriously, why do you think that is?
I've skipped over that because so many interviewers do this. It's basically it's a straw man. But so many of those are straw man arguments that he's making, or the questions he's asking.
For two reasons. Number one, we are taking on the entire establishment, and it is no secret that I am not much loved by the corporate establishment or the corporate media. That's one factor. We are a threat.
I do think that that's true. I do think that Bernie Sanders is a threat to the status quo.
To them, and they are nervous that we are going to put together the kind of grassroots working class movement that we need, not only to defeat Trump, but to transform the country. And I'll tell you what
Yeah, there's this whole... He claims not to be like Trump, but he's exactly like Trump in that he is basically making this about the working class, the quote working class. If you look at it, the people that think they're working class, in fact, I believe if you go back and listen to a podcast called Citations Needed, it's episode 91 of Citations Needed, where they talk about it's time to retire the term middle class. I think it's the same with the working class, because if you ask someone in America, are they working class? They're going to say yes. Even if they are wealthy, even if they are in the top 10%, they're going to say they're working class. You know, the only people that I could think of that maybe wouldn't are the investment bankers, real estate developers, you know, people like that.
The second reason is, you know, a lot of the media folks who are, you know, they are hardworking, they're nice, they're honest people. They are not, quote unquote, enemies of the people as Trump defines them. But they live in a certain world, an upper middle class world where they talk to each other. They don't know many working class people who are supporting Bernie Sanders. They don't know many young people who are supporting Bernie Sanders.
Good point.
And they talk to each other and they say, I can't believe it. How does Sanders, we have not talked to anybody who supports Sanders. How come he's doing so well in the polls? I think those are the two factors that we have.
And you've attracted these big crowds of...
I think that was true in 2016. I don't think it's true now. Thing is, Bernie Sanders has a lot of money. But it doesn't take money to win elections. Not just money. It takes money in campaigning in a way that builds on itself. And he didn't do that last time. That was one of the reasons why he lost. There are so many other reasons why Democrats lost the White House in 2016 that haven't been addressed. And I feel like a fucking Cassandra every day of my life because people don't want to talk about it. They want to blame it on the Russians. They want to blame it on everything, really, but the reality of the situation.
Of working people at your rallies, especially with squad members who've endorsed you, with Ilhan Omar in Minnesota recently, with Rashida Tlaib in Michigan, and of course with AOC in Queens in New York. You're going to be back with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in Iowa this coming weekend at a climate crisis summit, I believe. With Governor Jay Inslee out of the race, do you see yourself now, are you positioning yourself as the climate candidate?
Well, first of all, we're doing 3 events in Iowa with the...
First off, you can't just be a president and expect a president is not a king. So even if Bernie Sanders is elected, he has to govern, and he has to govern a Congress and a United States that is not going to support everything that he does. And Democrats generally, I mean, look how long Medicare for all, how long it took for him to get people on board with that. And he's not going to run for 4 years. He can't. He's going to be, at the end of 4 years, he would be 88. I don't think that's going to happen. But ultimately, I want what's going to be best for, number one, my community. And I don't think that's Bernie Sanders. I don't think he engages with the LGBT community, or that he's shown that he's going to pass policies or support policies that support trans people. You know? I mean, he can get out there and say, I walked with King. I don't think that's going to help. Yes, Jamie J. I looked in the chat. I'm going between 3 different chats, or 4 different chats actually. Facebook, YouTube, Mixer, and Periscope, which is Twitter. Yeah, Lex, that's because I suck at transitions and I didn't press the button. So I'm sitting there looking at my video. By the way, for those of you who haven't been here and you don't know who in the hell I am, this is a little about me.
Welcome to the Tea Party with Marty Abernathy, a show starring a binary trans woman born in the body of a non-binary atheist, trade unionist, equality advocate, and an Oako syndicalist that self-identifies as an unhinged fear pimp, outraged brigade commander, free speech police officer, SJW, and a bad faith agent of chaos.
Thank you, Seth Andrews, for creating those taglines for me to steal. Yeah, that's me. Yes, Jamie J, I am streaming on all 4 because I want to hit all the internets. And this show is going to be more formatted tonight. I just wanted to kind of broadcast kind of how Bernie Sanders isn't going to be my candidate. The more that I listened to this interview this morning, as I was getting really his interview really reinforced to me how He's just trying to be the anti-Trump by playing populist politics using weasel words, not putting forth any real policy. Medicare for all is really the only policy that comes to mind for me when talking about Lex in the chat says, I think the Trump rollbacks of trans medical, Sanders had a chance to make a really strong pro-trans ally statement, and I didn't see anyone talking about it. That's because he did have a heart attack. He had a heart attack, but it was announced before he had a heart attack that he was not going to go to the 2 LGBT events. I don't think that's an accident. Jamie J in the chat says, are you going to tell us why Kamala Harris 2020 is the only responsible choice? No. No, that would be...
You are fake news.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. YouTube is telling me that my current resolution is not optimal. I don't think you want to see my face in any more clarity. No, Kamala Harris is the... Okay, guys. So here's the thing. I was a delegate for Obama in 2008. And I learned a lot. I was an Obama delegate. I was one of 2. There were 2 Obama delegates in the Democratic Party that went to Denver. I was one. And Vanessa Edwards Foster was the other. The rest were Hillary delegates. And I was from the super liberal state of Indiana. Yeah, Indiana. Also, I made a reference this morning. I was like, or yesterday, I was like, it's pretty bad when TERFs are more conservative than the state of Indiana. They want a place that's more conservative than Indiana, and that's Mike Pence's home state. But in 2008, the one thing that I saw about Obama was how he built his movement on community. Because basically what would happen was you'd go to one of his rallies. There would be a whole bunch of people there. Those people would be, filling out as people walked up. They would be taking names, taking addresses, taking phone numbers. And then after the rallies, those same volunteers would call you and say, would you like to donate money? Oh, you can't donate money? Can you come in and do some phone banking? Can you walk door to door? So a lot of those people said yes. So they went in, they did those things, and it just built on each other. My experience in Wisconsin in 2016, that wasn't the case. I went to an event and volunteered and took names and did all that stuff. I never got a call. I reached out to his campaign, never got a call. He did not have surrogates. So in 2008, this is how it worked. There were people like Eric Stern from the Obama campaign that went out into the community looking for surrogates, people that supported Obama that would officially do so. And I was on Obama's steering and policy committee 2008. And then we went out into the community and told people, why we thought that they should vote for Obama and not Hillary. And I think, honestly, I truly believe that, and I think that bared fruit. Because Barack Obama was, and still is, the most trans-inclusive president of all time. That's not saying a lot, because most of them have been awful. But, that being said, there's an expectation with the campaign now. It's 2019. It's going to be 2020 when we vote. There needs to be people that are actively going out into these minority communities, and it's so important because it may sound like how the sausage is being made and all that, but it's important because those surrogates go out and they create buzz into the communities, into the minority communities. Bernie Sanders is not going. It drives me crazy when he does this populist working class bullshit, because it's not going to get him elected. Not engaging into minority communities is not going to get him elected. He has got to have surrogates that are out there that are talking about his policies that are going to help them. If he doesn't, he's not going to be the candidate. And honestly, when I sit there and I weigh things, I'm a socialist. I want a socialist as president. But his policies aren't socialist, really. He's a New Deal Democrat. I mean, he's not a socialist. Especially if you're someone like me that lives in Europe and understands what socialism really means. Where they have actual benefit systems, a safety net. Tories are trying to get rid of that, but it exists over here. But when it comes to the LGBT community, when it comes to the trans community especially, I need to see something from his campaign that makes my concerns about his vocal opposition to, quote, identity politics. And Jamie, no, Jamie J, I am not a Yang Gang 2020. No. Hey, I got this great idea. Let's give everybody $1,200 a month. And then get rid of all the benefits underneath that. No. No, I'm not voting for Mayor Pete either. Real socialism, free money. I'm for people-centered socialism and not business-centered socialism. Lex Hart says, the problem is we really don't have an intersectional socialist president. I say this a lot. Like, anti-bigotry is a huge missing piece from modern leftist groups right now. Yes, because they have this class analysis only. And, I mean, his thing is basically if you tackle income inequality, then racism goes away, and homophobia and transphobia and misogyny. And that's complete and utter bullshit. It'll make things better. For those things, but it won't fix them. It won't even come near to fixing them. And black men will still be dying on the streets because cops are abusive as fuck. You know, what's your Bernie Sanders? It's 2019. What's your day one plan to stop black people from dying on American streets? You're the progressive. What's your policy? You know. Lexhart says it feels a lot like your it feels a lot like, quote, your problems can take a back seat, unquote, when you hear those types of tactics. Are you anti-working class? You know, the only rich people that are able to not be bigoted against queer people, right? Rich people and cops. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Bernie Sanders, and I have to go back. I have to go back to my blog, which doesn't get a lot of love these days. Who does blogs anymore? But I wrote this after the 2016 election because some Newsweek article blamed Bernie Sanders voters for helping Trump win. And here's the proof. And I just thought that was the stupidest thing ever. And this is what I wrote. I said, the implication is if not for Sanders supporters, Hillary Clinton would be POTUS, not Trump. It wasn't Bernie Sanders supporters that sunk the Clinton campaign. It wasn't the fault of the Democratic National Committee who tipped the scales during the primary for Clinton. It wasn't Debbie Wasserman Schultz's rigging of the primary for Clinton. It wasn't the lack of an anti-racist candidate with a day one plan for racial justice. It wasn't the DNC memo that gave suggestions on how to ignore Black Lives Matter activists that Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton followed, by the way. It wasn't Donna Brazil's leaking of debate questions to the Clinton campaign during the primary debates. It wasn't Bernie bros. It wasn't never Hillary voters. It wasn't third-party voters. It wasn't Sanders' racist dog whistle of going beyond identity politics in an attempt to sway racist white voters. Yeah, that works for the Republicans. And that may work in Vermont, but sorry, Bernie, that doesn't work. But it didn't cause the election loss in 2016. It wasn't the fault of third-party voters. It wasn't DNC lawyers' fault for admitting that they would be willing to sell the rights to rig the primaries and select their own candidate. It wasn't Russian hacking. It wasn't Clinton supporters putting the myth of the violent Sanders supporters. It wasn't Republican voter suppression. It wasn't a corrupt superdelegate system. It wasn't an arcane electoral college. It wasn't 53% of white women voting for Trump or Clinton underperforming with Latinos or African Americans. It wasn't those things. It was all of them. And that shit has not been addressed at all. And Sanders was a part of that. So Jamie J says, don't mind me, I'm just extremely bitter. Yeah, I am pretty cynical. And in this interview, I like this song, by the way. But it's going to distract me, so I'm gonna play the next song because I need something that I want to jam to. But when it comes to 2016, Some people will say you get stuck on this. Lex, exactly. Lex says, I will never understand catering to racist, LGBT hating white people over uniting all marginalized people together. Guess what? Guess what, folks? Democrats have not won white men since 1969. 1969. Democrats have not won white men. So it's so unbelievably stupid to go after white men anywhere electorally. It's just the dumbest politics, like ground game ever, because it's failure. You don't engage with the LGBT community. You don't engage with Latino and black voters. Just having a couple surrogates. He does have a couple surrogates, but Simone Sanders, I believe, is probably the only one that's officially on the campaign. Jamie J, I'm not sure. Again, we're just doing this testing. Part of it is just get all the elements correct. But one of the biggest problems I have with people making this about, oh, well, you're going to pick Mayor Pete, or you're going to pick this candidate or that candidate. Almost in every state, I believe you can write people in. People say, you're not going to win a write-in candidate, blah, blah, blah. That's because people have that in their heads. But you have all these different candidates that are on the ballot that it's like a cult of personality. Vote for Pepsi. Vote for Coke. Vote for Bernie Sanders. Vote for Elizabeth Warren. Vote for Kamala Harris. Lex says, also, we literally don't need them, because if we collectively re-enfranchised all these people, then we would outnumber them. That's the thing, though, Lex. That's already the case. That's how Barack Obama won. If you go back and you look at the numbers, he did get white voters. But if you look at Hillary Clinton numbers, if she goes into Wisconsin and she gets a minority vote, especially in Milwaukee and in Madison and different places, she wins Wisconsin. She lost Wisconsin by 22,000 votes. So, and the fact that she didn't come to Wisconsin at all because she didn't think she needed to. But besides that, Bernie Sanders is saying you should vote for him because he's a socialist. Elizabeth Warren has a bunch of programs. The thing that scares me about Elizabeth Warren is she said she's a capitalist, and I don't think that she's going to create the amount of change that I want to see fast enough. Because we're at a crisis point. And there are certain things like, I'll give you for instance, using renewable energy. If we have that as a goal, number one, we're going to help our environment. But number two, that is national security. If you don't have to buy oil from a country or sell them arms because you're focused, the only thing that you manufacture are guns and bombs and planes, but instead you have these green jobs and you're building infrastructure in your own country, and your fuel is from within your own country, and you don't have to worry about giving billions to people that kill journalists, countries that target journalists. You don't have to perform for them. Jamie said, I like my capitalism with a nice big smiling face in front of it. What pisses me off a lot of times, though, is you'll get people say, well, it doesn't matter. And it does. The only people that can say that typically are white cishet people, and especially men, because they're the least affected. They're the last ones to be affected. Trans kids in school, I can tell you right now that they've been affected, and they feel it, and they know it. They aren't going to say it doesn't matter which president we vote for if you ask them. African Americans, I don't think they would say the same thing either. When they have a racist in the White House, a white nationalist in the White House, it matters. But my whole thing is we need to stop worrying about or seeing this in a tribal way. I'm on Bernie's team. I'm on Hillary's team. I'm on Pete Buttigieg's team. Mayor Pete. I'm on Mayor Pete's team. What's Mayor Pete going to do? What's Kamala Harris going to do? I mean, besides deny trans people surgeries. Yeah. So anyways, I when it comes down to it, the fact that Bernie Sanders repeatedly has shown that he doesn't really care about black lives or trans lives. To me, that's enough not to vote for him to not have a plan. I will vote. Voting is not everything. In fact, one of the big problems I have is none of the candidates. Jamie J says, you know, it'd be great, to be honest, not concentration camps. Exactly, Jamie J. Exactly. That'd be awesome. But they need somebody to blame. Blaming people is not a strategy that ultimately is going to win. You need a New Deal style of politic. God damn it. Lex Hart says, has any politician said day one that they're closing the camps? I would be curious to know that. Because, amen. Amen. Like day one, anyone in the camp should be given citizenship and the camp's closed. Yep. If you've endured that shit, that should be automatic citizenship. But hey, I don't believe in boundaries. I don't believe in boundaries. Yeah, I haven't went through every policy, but I do know in my community that I've not heard of any surrogates. For me, that is, I know that Bernie Sanders is not going to win. because basically early on you need to engage with the minority communities to win the early primaries. He'll probably win the early New England state primaries, possibly. But after that, not so much. Lex says any serious president should have as their part of their daily stump. We are closing the camps. Yes, because you really need to be going out for those votes in of Latino voters. You know, you need to have a day one plan for black men and women that are dying on the streets. You know, you need to talk about passing actual LGBT legislation that type legislation that stops workplace discrimination that's on the books. You have this in America, you have this patchwork of laws, but you can see where the flaw is in that. By the way, I have a marker that I can point with. I'm pointing at you. But you can have those patchworks, but the courts will rip them apart, and they have, and they are going to. This is a conservative Supreme Court. And I'm sorry, but John Roberts doesn't give a fuck about what is it? Stare decisis. I can't even say it. Basically, if it's law that's stare decisis, if it's law that's been on the books that they're not going to try to legislate it. Maria is in the chat. Hello, Maria. Welcome to our chat. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders in American politics because that's what's on my mind this morning. And I will be voting from the UK in my primary in Wisconsin. But right as it stands right now, unless something drastically changes, I'll be voting for Elizabeth Warren just because she has actual plans, day one plans. And I will research it more, but Bernie Sanders has got to have a competent strategy. You can't just say, well, we've had more donors. So you can have a ton of donors that give you, you know, I think his average was like $27. It doesn't matter. By the way, we just got a like somewhere. We have stream elements, and I need to work these out so they actually come up here, because they're actually on one of the pages that I made. All these designs, by the way, I've made. So I'm sorry if you can tell. But that's something we're going to work on as far as getting between now and hopefully January. I am going to have some really cool guests, people that interest me. And maybe to do with the actual campaigns once it gets started. Because this show is going to be about trans stuff, or it is about trans stuff. But it also is about trans politics. British, because I live in the UK. American politics, because I'm an American. Home automation, if I want to, because it's one of my interests. This show is mainly about trans rights, but that's because it's mainly my passion. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she asked me why I post some of the things I do. And I'm like, because especially one of them was about, and it's not about she's my sister from my father. Because my mother and father were never married. In fact, they were never in a relationship. So my sister, she asked me, she said, why do you post some of the things you do on Facebook? And I have two sisters, by the way. This is one of my actually, I have three sisters, but I don't talk to one of them because one of them is anti-trans and not a very nice person, kind of a narcissist, and a mean one at that. But I don't want people to have to go through the same things that I have gone through. So if I can help them by saying that you don't have to have toxic people in your life, then I'm gonna. Because I don't want people to have to go through what I've had to go through. But, so, this show's going to be a lot of things. You know what I just did? I just closed a tab. To my YouTube channel. Oopsies, guys. In the chat on youtubes.com. But anyways, it is getting kind of, we have a new subscriber. That's Andrea from Facebook. Glad to see that you've subscribed to the channel. By the way, if you want to subscribe,
make sure to subscribe on YouTube and don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified when we go live.
anyways, I am probably going to stream in the coming days more about things like this, especially about Bernie Sanders. But what are we at? We're right at an hour, which is a good place to cut this off. Unless you want to phone me, which you can.
You can call the show in the US toll-free at 866-727-9070 and in the UK toll-free 808-189-0928.
By the way, that number is actually on the screen as well. So if you want to call, I am here to listen. And I'll have a more structured show. I promise. This is just a rando stream that I just wanted to talk about. Mainly about my frustration with Bernie Sanders, with socialists in general when it comes to actual policy. You may not agree with him, but Richard Wolff is awesome because he talks about economics and actual economic policy, not just saying, we ought to do something. Because I think everybody believes that. But I thank everyone for Lex says, I only subbed on YouTube because I do not have Facebook and I refuse. Yay. All right. Can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, now I'm seeing myself.
You aren't seeing yourself.
There we go. I stopped the stream so I wasn't all messed up.
Grandma?
And I'll see it later, right? You're posting it up on Mama?
Grandma, you need to turn down the stream at home?
I turned it off.
Well,
I trained my puppy to go over to the TV and turn it off.
now you got to sit there and say, okay, I'll be right back.
Doesn't work anymore.
This is Melanie Davis from Indiana. I believe Bloomington, Indiana these days, correct?
It is. Yep. I'm down in Bloomington, which is south of where we lived in Indy. So for all of those,
why did you call in? What are you wanting to put out there into the interwebs?
I want to complain about these kids on my lawn. That's where I call, right?
Yes.
Can you do something about that?
Yes, I'll be right over in about 3 weeks, and I'll be a little.
Oh, awesome!
I'll be about 300 miles north, but.
Oh, you're going to Madison?
No, I'm going to Chicago. Actually, that's where.
That's not that far.
That's where my daddy and my two sisters live. So.
I'll meet you there. It's only about a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, you have a history of doing road trips that aren't.
I love road trips. I drove 2 hours for pizza sticks once.
You drove to Montana. What vehicle did you drive in?
Oh, I was in see, and I didn't even think about it when we were buying it either. It was a Pontiac Transport. I was like, Trans? Even my car supports me. This is great.
Yeah, but didn't
it was a minivan.
Didn't the transmission go out?
No, it was I was in the mountains coming out of Jackson, Wyoming, where the Tetons are, the breasts, and that's what Tetons means if you don't know. And the car started to overheat, and it was the thermostat in the engine had died. And out west here, so when my cousins came over from Europe when I was little, they couldn't believe that everything was so far apart, and that was in Indiana. But when you go out west, in the American West, everything is really far apart. And
unbelievable.
I went to the only auto parts store, and they didn't have the part. And they said, "Oh, you've got to go to Idaho." I had to go to the next state to get this $14 part, right? And it was ridiculous. So I had to limp the car over the mountains while it's overheating. It was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Almost hit horses, drove through a herd of mule deer. It was an adventure.
I was gonna say, you have lived an impressive life.
I packed it in.
Oh my God! So
and now I'm just
Who
Sorry.
When it comes to from a trans perspective, what are your thoughts on who you're going to vote for, and who are you on the Camilla train?
So I'm with you. I'm probably going to end up voting Warren first, and hopefully she'll get it. I like her. I'm kind of, it's really honestly, and I hate to say it, and this is mean, and this is horrible, and I will lose all of my fans. But I'm kind of done with the boomer. The OK Boomer thing is real, and as much as some of them have great ideas, it's time. I'm ready. We need fresh energy, and Elizabeth has got energy, but still, there's this. I don't know. I got Obama, and I was really kind of happy with the energy that he had, except for the whole drone strikes killing families.
Yeah.
That he doesn't get my vote for that. But
and deporting children, and I mean we can go down.
Oh
the
God,
list.
the deportation. But yeah, I mean he sucks too. Anybody that we vote in is going to suck in sundry ways. The
support for Israel.
The thing is to do what?
Support for Israel.
It's
not supporting.
I'm just
BDS.
tired of not supporting. But the thing is, at a certain point, and I can even feel it wanting to sneak up on me, right? And I'm young. I'm like, 30 years younger than you. And I'm feeling that, slowing down this, right? I'm kind of losing touch. Even though I've got a teenager and there's constant input in my life of what's going on. And I'm still kind of losing touch with how fast society is changing. The culture is changing. And that sucks. I mean, if there was a pill I could take to or is that what cocaine's for? I don't know. Is that what that's for? Is cocaine even still a thing? Did that go out in the 80s?
I think it
did. We lose that?
I think it did. I think it went out with...
No, actually,
I think it went out with the
they
Quaaludes.
just had a...
This is how old. This is how old we are. We aren't boomers, by the way. We are Gen Xers.
We're Gen X. We're the cool generation.
We're that generation that's just in the middle, going, "Oh fuck."
Exactly, and I feel it, and I feel that, and so that's the thing. I want fresh blood out there because I know that these folks, they're getting information, they're getting input, they've got people in place in their campaign who are suggesting where they need to focus.
But you know what I want more?
In Bernie's case, he hasn't had anybody there.
You know what I want more than anything? I want someone that is going to get other. This is something that Bernie didn't do in the elections that were held a few days ago. Elizabeth Warren was supporting candidates to get elected. Some of hers got elected, some of them didn't. Bernie Sanders didn't.
Right.
There needs to be a House and a Senate full of AOCs. And and Talibs and what they call the squad. There needs to be a bigger squad.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's happening. I mean, we saw that last year's wave, right? I won't call it a blue wave, but it was young. It was female. It was a fresh.
By the way, Lex in the YouTube chat says, as a millennial, I am out here trying to kill as many industries as I can.
And thank you. Bless you for your effort.
That is probably the worst boomer take ever. All these stories about millennials aren't doing this and millennials aren't doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, well, you asshole, it's because they haven't been handed every goddamn thing that you have your entire life. You've had the cream of the crop of everything, you know? You had cheap housing, you had cheap college. I mean, you go down the line and white, cis, het, male boomers, you suck. You are the worst.
My mom would tell me a story, and she talks about how she essentially paid for college with a summer job. She paid for the next year of college because my grandfather only at the time made $10,000 a year, and she went to IU down here. And I'm like, how do you pay for college by working a summer job?
Well,
but
exactly, because it wasn't $40,000 a year.
Right. Well, not only that, but the job that she worked in college was at one of the steel mills up in northwest Indiana. It's one of the industrial hubs of America.
Let me guess. It was union.
Well, it was, I don't think she was union because she was office work. But she made $17 an hour in 1968, 69, and 70. And 71. And, that's, I've never made that. Like, I've never made a position salaried or wage that was near that. I think I got to $14 an hour once. And I was grateful for it. And then here we are 50 years later, almost. And so there's so much inequity in this country. And iniquity too, we'll say that. But we don't have the investment in the workers, in the average people. And you were talking about earlier about, the working class and how a lot of people who make, $150,000 a year plus think that they're actually working class people.
Oh yeah. Or middle class.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And down here in Bloomington, we have IU and a few other companies, Cook, Medical, who employ, but we used to have RCA, we used to have a lot of other industrial type jobs. We have nothing as far as job goes, prospects go. We have people working in gas stations who have their PhDs because there's just nothing for them. Makes for a great conversation though when you're paying for your gas. But I almost have to pay for my gas chickens at this point because there's not enough money.
Well,
going around.
Jamie J in the chat. I don't know why. For some reason, YouTube held this comment, made me approve it. But she said, $17 in 1968 equals 125 in 2019. So there's your difference as far as college goes.
I'm going to vomit right now. That's I can't even. Because I never put that together. I've been hearing that since I was little about how she used to make $17 an hour, and that was so great. And people made a lot of money in the mills back in the day when they were union jobs and when industrial manufacturing jobs were the bomb and the heart of America.
Well, and that's to me, that's where how do you stop that? How do you stop that? Because it's been and it still is, and it's the same way in the UK. It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
They'll sit there and they'll say, well, we have to offer these businesses tax cuts or they're going to go somewhere else.
They're not going to go any fucking where else. Oh, I'm sorry, I said the F word. Can you beep that out?
No.
Or can I say that?
Yes, you can
I have
say
my
that.
radio show. And when I do it live, I can't say any of the words,
Can you say, we're doing it live?
But I'm also half Serbian.
Sure.
I'm half Serbian.
Yes.
You knew that when I called in, and I have to curse.
Okay.
Can I curse in Serbian?
Feel
No?
free. Feel free. We're intersectional.
Okay. Because so we have this myth of the Industrial Revolution economy continuing on. We're beyond the Industrial Revolution so far, but we're still stuck in that. We're still stuck in think of the coal miners. What the hell? Think of what coal miners? There's 12 of them. Why are we catering to all 12?
Yeah.
You know? And that economy died. Okay? Along with the town crier.
Well,
along with
you have people over here as far as Brexit goes.
Yeah.
They're worried about the fishing industry. So have you ever heard of a department store called Harrods?
Yeah, of course. What?
Harrods.
I'm an Anglophile from like way back. So go ahead.
Harrods.
What? Harrods.
It produces, as far as income, the same amount as the fishing industry does in the UK.
Well,
so they're talking about fishing rights that are
right.
and it's a non-starter when it comes to how many things are going to be fucked. But people just love hearing, and I go back and forth with NAFTA, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but I definitely think that there's been a race to the bottom. I'll give you an example. Yeah. When I was younger, I used to know people that worked for GM or Chrysler in Indianapolis, actually in Kokomo, for Chrysler, I believe, or maybe it was GM. But there were plants throughout the United States, and a lot in Indiana. And I knew people that would work for Pepsi or these union jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have people that were making overtime at like a rate of like $30 to $40 an hour at a GM plant. And their standard was like 26 an hour. So I had a friend not too long ago. He was like, well, you can come and you can work at the Subaru plant. It's non-union in Lafayette, Indiana, and they start you out like $16 an hour. And I was like, what?
Interesting story. My parents helped build the Subaru plant. That was not interesting, but it was a story. So I only half lied.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. People in the auto industry in Indiana are making less money today than they were making 25, 35, 45 years ago.
Yeah. And that's across American in almost every industry. Wages have been stagnant since the late 70s. Now, what else is, other than myself, what else has been stagnant since the late 70s? I mean, until we tackle the income issue, everything else is moot, because we're in a state of constant desperation. And when people are in that state, they don't think clearly. They don't vote in their best interests. They don't. They just don't act right.
It seems
we're
like
always trying. We're always on the hustle.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's almost a race to the bottom, and it's blame the least among us for those problems.
Yeah.
I see it in the UK with Brexit. They want to blame the immigrants, but guess which immigrants they don't blame?
You?
Yeah, the white ones. It's weird. It's
well,
weird.
Nobody blames. The white men are the job creators. The white men are the saviors. The white men are people that are making this country great again, and obviously England too. Do you have any red hats over there? Because I mean, I know the sentiment is similar, but do you actually have people who wear versions of the MAGA thing, or do you have your own?
Oh, sort of. I would say more like the Brexiteers or very nationalistic.
That's
but
adorable, the Brexiteers.
Yeah, it's like the Mouseketeers.
It's cute. I mean, that I wouldn't even mind calling myself that, because it sounds adorable. French, but adorable.
But
that's my question, I guess.
By the way, the chat's having a discussion about BreadTube. Do you know what BreadTube is?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what BreadTube is?
Hold on a sec. I can't, actually, I'm having a really hard time hearing you. You're it's scratchy, and I know the string is wrapped around the earth a little too tight. So it might be getting muffled.
I think it's just your brain can't hear the words BreadTube.
Well, it's just hard to hear, and I'm actually now in my Mustang, so that's right. I'm driving a sports car right now.
Aren't you? Well, that's an upgrade from the wagon, or the two wagons. Or how many wagons have you owned?
So actual station wagons I've had two. There were some like hatchbacky sort of things, but actual station wagons I only had two. And I had one of those really big ones, like in the National Lampoon Family Vacation thing.
Yeah.
So.
Them were the days.
But I think the last time you saw me with one was a little green one.
Yes, Escort.
Yeah,
an Escort wagon.
Yeah, the Escort. Yeah, that was just sad. That was like, I don't know, like an MG version of a wagon. It was so tiny. It was actually the trunk of a car made into another car.
I think that's probably accurate. But
it was just the boot. That's all we got.
Yes, exactly. I tend to think when it comes to vehicles, you have like really bad taste.
Did you just say I had really bad luck, or
no? Well,
choice,
that too. Yes. All those. Yes. But I love you anyways.
What? I'm poor. All right. I mean, to all the listeners out there, I am poor as hell. I've been living in poverty for a good long time now, about 12 years or so. And during that time, mostly my income has been under $6,000 a year.
Yep.
So.
Yep. That is not unusual.
My choice for vehicles
trans people.
What now?
That's not unusual for trans people. A friend of mine worked at Kohl's and was making probably about $12,000 a year. And that's just, I've been really lucky because, I mean, there are downsides of having this face. But the upside of having some privilege from that is that I got into a career early that I had before I transitioned. And that, yet I've still underperformed what I was doing. I'd made less every year, but I was lucky. I was lucky that way. But
You made some good choices, I think. I don't know about luck. I mean, for the field that you went into, I was jealous. I was like, that's some earning potential for that, education level. Because at the time, you how long did you go to school for?
3
get
years.
your-
3 years.
Yeah.
For those that aren't in the know, I am the job that pays the bills is not this, and it never will be this. Yeah, I'm a radiographer, or as they're known in the United States, I am a radiologic technologist. But in the UK, we call them radiographers. But I take pictures
Well,
of
and
people.
you have a lot more responsibilities now. Like here, it was just like, just put people in the microwave and press cook.
Because we just
But-
press buttons.
But it's like the medical scene from Idiocracy with the
Yeah,
you put
yeah.
this one in your ear, and
And this one in your butt. Yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah,
now
nope,
you have
that's
a
the
lot
wrong
more.
one.
for-
Yeah. Well,
that you
and we're
gotta
heading
do, so-
we're heading that way with automation, but there won't be anybody
Yeah.
to take care of. But Mel,
So-
I am going to jump off here because I have
Yeah.
I have another topic that I'm going to talk about before I go.
Okay.
And I
Yeah. You don't need to be talking to me. Like nobody wants to talk to me. I just wanted to jump on and be like,
No,
attention
thank
more
you for calling.
because here you are, and I'm like, platforming myself. But no, I think this is great. I really can't wait to hear it. Like when you get all the kinks out and you start getting like really going, because I know this is your passion.
Yeah,
and,
it totally is. And it's a passion that
and-
you have as well, from what I can tell. Because
Well, this isn't about my
you're doing a show now.
transmedia empire.
Based in Bloomington, Indiana.
based in this small town Indiana, yeah. But yeah, it's what you're doing and what you're picking back up, and let me say that I was talking about this with some people. I go to IU occasionally. They ask for panelists, and I do these little talks, and I'm like, I know all these amazing freaking people who have done amazing things as far as like within the community, and names are never sung from the rafters or anything, and you, though your name has been sung probably in many back alleys and byways of Indianapolis and Madison.
In Bloomington.
You don't get the credit you deserve for what you did and what you meant to the community.
But you know what?
So
You know what? It's funny
What?
because I had someone tell me that they were talking to someone and about Trans Advocate, and they were like, well, I thought Kristen Williams started that, and I was like, you know what? I don't care. Yes, I'm the founder of Trans Advocate, and I did that for 10 years, and I gave her a really good platform for her to launch Trans Advocate to new heights. But you know what? I don't care. The thing is, the reality is it's there for the community. It's a solid foundation. And honestly, I would like to see this along the same lines. I want it to be something that elevates the community. That's why I want to do this. That's why I've always, ultimately, when I started Trans Advocate, it came out of severe pain when I basically I went through a really harsh divorce. I lost custody of my daughter went through some domestic violence. It was a really shitty time in my life, and I wasn't able to see either one of my kids. I lost pretty much contact with all of my family on my mom's side, which I didn't know about my dad's side at the time. So I had everything ripped away from me, and basically it was a way for me to help other people not ever have to go through what I went through. And that's my passion in the past few years, especially here in the UK, has been towards trans kids, because trans kids are there's a part of my my transition that I'll never be okay with, because I look like this and I live in this body, and there's a certain level of dysphoria I'm always going to have because I went through male puberty. That's just reality. And the fact that these kids won't ever have to, if they're like me, they won't ever have to go through that. They won't ever have to have a life where they're just accepting the reality, the horrible reality that they live in, and trying to find a way to survive in that they can grow. And I've already seen it. I've already seen, but when it comes to these conservatives, whether they be TERFs or Christians, they don't want us to exist. That's the reality. They don't want us to exist.
Yeah.
But I want to do this because I want to promote community, and especially in the UK, where a lot of the anti-trans stuff comes from. There is no trans media that really talks about you literally have the media over here going after trans people every single day. The Times newspaper over here last year, I haven't done it in a while. I probably need to do it, but like over a year's time, it was 310 articles that were related to trans. Some of them were positive, but the majority of them were negative. So you're talking almost every freaking day they're doing an article on trans people. And a lot of them, basically, what it boils down to is they boil down to lies. But the Ofcom and Ipsos are two bodies that are supposed to regulate media over here. And especially Ipsos, they'll come back and say, well, it was an opinion piece, so those things don't apply. So it literally is a get out of jail free card for any media in this country, and they use trans people in a way that's so vile and so disgusting, especially when it comes to trans kids. They'll be talking about, oh God, the trans kid, these little infants they're given hormones.
Oh yeah.
They're getting sex changes. Babies are getting sex changes.
Well, actually, when you talk about intersex people, they are. However,
but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean that's
because parents want it, and parents should be able to do whatever they can with their baby's genitals, because those are important.
It's just sensationalism, and we're we're a great target.
Well,
we're people who lack the political power to push against that, and there's just enough sensationalistic quality that they can be like, hey, check out this sideshow. Yeah. And so they throw us out in front, and it's like nowadays, I just heard something on a video that I was watching from way back, and they said something about it sweeps week. And I hadn't heard that term in forever. And I thought, well, you know what? With this modern age, every day is sweeps week.
Yep.
You go for the most clicks, for the most engagement, and right now we're a high, the eyeballs. We are the hot button now. So they're and it doesn't matter, because to them, any publicity is good publicity, right? But for us, it's literally life and death. And so we have a couple of politicians now based off of that poor kid in Texas whose parents are fighting for custody. And two politicians, one in Kentucky and the other one in Georgia, are pushing forward legislation to keep kids from getting medical intervention at all for being trans until they're 18.
Yeah,
and then magically, when somebody turns 18, they're just, obviously they can make all the best decisions.
Well,
after
they've
so
already been, especially if they're trans women, after they've already been masculinized and are down this road. This is one of those things. Essentially, they want to punish trans people for existing and not have the best lives they can. And I read a piece on last night's Turf show, which is up on YouTube. But about it was at the christianpost.com, and basically this person was talking about their child, and it sounded like that it was a young child, but actually I know who they're talking about. This piece was amalgamation of different people, but the children that they were talking about were fucking adults. They were 25.
Really?
One of them was 25.
Oh my God.
And they talk about losing their children. Guess what they lost? They lost having their kids in their lives because they didn't accept them. They loved their religion more than they loved their own children. They loved their ideology more than they loved their own children.
And that's it. It's only in their heads. And I get it, we've got kids. Because of the way I was raised and because of, who and what I am, I didn't want to raise my child specifically with regards to gender, but also just in general. I didn't want to put expectations on her because I didn't want her to feel that she needed to rise to something that wasn't, having anything to do with her talent or her interests or whatever, and or just not about her, and that way she could find her own way in the world.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, like, who the hell am I to dictate who my child should grow up to be? I mean, yeah, you still have to take out the garbage and stuff, but I mean, as far as like telling my child that, you are this and you are not that, is absolutely horrific to me. Obviously because of how we were raised, but when I see parents, I'm on several Facebook groups for parents and parents of trans folk and trans people who are parents, and there's still so many people that are just like, I am in such deep mourning of my child, and they can't get over it. And I'm like, that's your programming. That was the programming that you were given. Has nothing to do with your child.
Because your child's still there. Your child still exists. They weren't
Yeah,
magically teleported outside of just because they have a different body.
hmm and a different name that you didn't choose.
Yes. Yes. There's so much.
You know?
There's so much like ownership of parents and their children's bodies. And it's just so, when it comes to these Christianists, it's so gross.
Yeah.
There was a turf that was talking about that there was a dressing room, or there was a place where she went to have her daughter fitted for a bra, and there was a quote man. It was a trans woman, of course, but in another cubicle, they had to wait. It wasn't even that there was a trans woman in their presence. They had to wait to get their own space at their own cubicle to be fitted. And how dare a man invade that space?
And so this is the part. This is the point of getting this information out there. You know, saturating the culture with truth as opposed to the lies that we'd all heard in church from our elders and from our culture, and to, because people are afraid because they're conceptualizing everything incorrectly, and I think that if they had a different point of view, and I've seen it too. I've seen people change how they react almost, instantly once they get it. Once they realize that, oh, this isn't like, something you chose to do last Thursday because you were bored. This is actually who you are. And then their demeanor changes. The way they approach everything changes because they're seeing it in a different light and with more understanding. And if you can get the information out, get the understanding out to as many people as possible, it'll snowball. And I think it's doing that. I mean, public opinion in the United States actually doesn't match what we're seeing from our legislators and what we're hearing in our the general internet culture and all that stuff. People's opinions are relatively positive, and they're trending toward understanding and acceptance. But of course, again, sensationalism and how things are presented, and then you have the pastors
clickbait
who are preaching this stuff, and that's only self-serving for them. And I say that knowing that I'm only self-serving for our community, but our community isn't trying to destroy people. We're just trying to live. I think goals have to be looked at too, because I've had people, well, you're just trying to. Well, yeah, I'm just trying to make life better for people. I'm just trying to make life better for the kids who are growing up.
I'm trying to make life better for people that come behind me because of the horrible shit that happened to me.
Yeah.
I don't want
the story.
Yeah, I don't want a trans woman going into a men's room and being raped because she was too scared to use the women's restroom. Because that happened to me. I don't want that to happen to anybody else.
No, that's horrific.
I don't want another trans person to have their child taken away and their mental health suffer immensely because of that.
I tell your story. I tell that story of you, and I tell people what you had said to me when I was working with the whole what's going to happen with custody and all of that, and what you had just gone through, the pain that you were going through, and the general narrative was, well, you'll never have custody of your kids, you'll lose custody of them. That was what normally happened.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening in my case was not unheard of across the country, but extremely rare. And I appreciate that. And I see more and more, it happening, that it's not automatic discrimination against the trans parent. And, and it should never happen. It shouldn't have happened with you. It should never happen with anybody. So I don't know. I do see the change. I do see the movement, and it's been because of you speaking out and you sharing. So this is going to be another important Marty Abernathy joint. Can we please? Is that what? I don't know what the kids are saying, but it's like a Spike Lee joint. I'm like, it's a Marty Abernathy joint.
I'm just gonna wait for my chance to be woke scolded. I think that's what the kids called it. The kids are calling it woke scolded. But because which I find hilarious, because I have something to pull back from when it comes to that type of thing, because I fucked up in early days of Twitter. I posted a link to a story that I wrote, and it included the N-word. And it was a quote from RuPaul. But I had taken out the transphobic word and inserted the racist word, and I typed it out.
Oh, right.
And that was racist of me to do. And
it was illustrative as it was.
And Black Twitter called my ass out, and it felt like an attack, but I learned from it. I listened to it, and that's what I was gonna talk about, because there's are you familiar with ContraPoints at all?
Slightly, and only recently, because of that whole thing.
What are you familiar with the Buck Angel controversy going on right now?
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious. What? As someone that hasn't heard about this in a big way, did you hear about the stream that H Bomber Guy did, the Donkey Kong stream?
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was just curious at how far that had gotten. So H Bomber Guy is another, quote, bread tuber, YouTuber that's on the left. And he did a stream where he raised 320, I think, £1,000, I believe, for trans kids. Because some jackass who is, think of Ricky Gervais in Ireland. It would be kind of be like the equivalent. Comedian.
Ew.
Well, he's known as Father Ted over here, and but the guy is a total knob, and a transphobe who thinks he's a white knight. But they H Bomber guy basically raised money on the back of this guy's transphobia, and it was brilliant to see. But he's recently come out against the whole thing with ContraPoints, and I'm kind of like seeing this develop. I'm kind of like I feel like the trans community has this divide between people that have cis privilege, and ContraPoints does, and people that don't, and like me,
right?
And
me.
Exactly, and there's this divide that you get these people that call themselves trans medicalists. It's just a way to divide the community and raise yourself up. I mean, the only good thing that I think that Buck Angel did was for the adult transmasculine porn community. Outside of that, I don't think he's done jack shit for the image of trans people. Other than, I mean,
I wish I was better informed on that.
Oh God, he outed Lana Wachowski.
He's just turned out to be a real piece of shit, hasn't he?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sorry.
And back in the day, they used to call them HBSers, which is Harry Benjamin syndrome, or true transsexuals, or I mean, you could go down the line.
True scum, the medicalist.
Yes. It's the same hate, different day. It's the same cis privileged folk, just dumping on
and class privilege, and and being absolutely uneducated as far as non-binary folk. The idea that you have to perform a certain role in order to be, to actually be anybody. You're not good enough to be trans. You're not really blah blah blah. Oh, you know what? It's been the case forever that people have been required to jump through cis people's hoops. We don't need the trans community also creating all these false hurdles for us to jump, benchmarks for us to meet.
Yeah, we don't need any more gatekeeping than we've already experienced, which is a shit ton. But
so, honey, I gotta let you go because I picked my daughter up about 20 minutes ago.
All right.
She's been quietly sitting here, very very kindly going through all of her videos.
Well, that's awesome. Send her my love, and
Marty says she loves you.
She don't even.
In a different world.
She don't even remember me, but I got pictures of that child.
Oh, hell, she does. We got pictures. I still got pictures of her in your arms from canvassing for Obama.
For Obama. That's right.
We were talking about before.
That's right. We went door to door. You did with a child in your hand. That's how much you went out and. Anyways.
Maybe that's what we need. I need to go get a child and canvas with a child.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go door to door trying to find one.
Trying to find a child?
Yes.
Do you have a child I could have?
I'll bring him back.
Do you have any extras?
I'll bring him back after I canvass.
We do have a Walmart in town. unattended children all over the place.
Yeah,
They're hungry.
I'm thinking no.
You know.
Yeah, I'm thinking no on that. I'd like to see you stay out of jail. So, yeah. Don't make yourself any more of a target.
Oh no, I am absolutely. Might as well be red and white and circular.
Well, go
Yeah.
go have fun with your daughter, and definitely call again, because I need
I will.
callers.
You're on my speed dial, whatever that is.
Awesome.
Does speed dial even exist? It's not even a thing. We just asked Siri to do everything.
Whatever, boomer.
So. It's made of tube.
Boomers have speed dial.
Oh my God. All right. I love you, honey. Take care.
All right. Take care. Thank you. Love you too.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Melanie from Indiana. I did want to. I'm going on 2 hours now. We got 10 minutes to 2 hours. I am going to stop streaming, but I did want to say with the bread tube stuff. It's really disappointing. And I feel like that, I hate to say this, but a lot of it has to do with how YouTube is structured, the people that rise up, Peter Coffin, ContraPoints, they all have a certain amount of, in the economy of YouTube, it is capitalist in nature. It is the gig economy of video streaming. And, I'm not on these platforms to make a living. I'm not on these platforms to sell you some brain supplements, some soy for you soy boys. And what Melanie was saying earlier, things are getting better. And the way they're going to get better is by us connecting, building community, and going out and being in the community, being present, having people know us, know our lives, know our stories. Because that's how marriage equality was won. I know it because I was there. I helped. That's a whole nother story, but I organized protests and all kinds of things back when marriage equality was a fight. And the way that it was won was through people knowing our stories. And it's important that people know our stories. I don't want people to know my story because I want people to feel sorry for me or feel bad for me. Honestly, I have an amazing life now. And most of the situational depression that I've suffered with in the past is a thing of the past. But what I do want to share these things for is for people to know that they're not alone, know that there is hope, know that there is a way through this. There is a way for us to connect, to go out into the world, and for people to know us and love us and see us as people, not as freaks of nature or something that they can just throw away, but people that they love and care about. That's when we win. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I am going to play something at the end of every show. When I stop recording, I'll continue after this. But for those of you listening in the podcast,
You're listening to the audio podcast version of The Tea Party. You can watch the video broadcast on Facebook, Periscope, Mixer, Twitch, and YouTube. You can find links in the show notes.
So I ended the recording for the podcast, which I'll post soon. But that's it. That's it. I think the best thing that we can do for each other is build community and build on platforms. I'm on these different platforms because I want to build community, not because I want to make a living, not because I want people to watch my videos for fudge's sakes. You know, yes, we have a Patreon. But if you become a patron, you're gonna get things for that. Essentially, connection to other people, and help build a community resource. Because the money that you guys give us, it's going right back in to make this better, to build it up, to have more resources, more interviews, more community involvement. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. To be honest with you, I've financed this equipment myself. So as long as I have a job, I'm going to be doing this show. And it's already paid for. So even if I don't have a job, I'm still going to broadcast because I have things to say and the world needs to hear from trans people. It's important that our voices are out there and that we're heard. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful night. I will see you soon. See you on YouTube, Twitch, Mixer, Periscope, and all around the internet and Facebook sometimes. Take care, everybody.
Don't give up. You will get by. The tide is turning. I feel alright.
You're listening to The Tea Party, part of the Trans FM radio network.